Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about entrepreneurship and side hustles, as the name implies. And it is also an interactive live stream. So if you are here and you're a subscriber to my channel and you've been a subscriber for any amount of time, you should be able to get into the chat box and ask me questions, because that's what this is about. Tell me what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, what you're wanting to learn, and I will do my best to help you out. So in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of setting up another income stream for yourself, that's what this is all about. And entrepreneurship is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I would encourage everybody to check it out, because not only is this a way to make yourself more money, add on income streams to what you're doing, but it's a way to give yourself a lot more options in life, at least in terms of making money. You don't have to be an employee. You don't have to work for somebody else. You could be your own boss. Incredible thing. And also, it's a vehicle to be, how can I put this? To do something that's creatively satisfying. Also, you get to decide what you do and be your own boss, have your vision, and have it pay off. And that's an incredibly self-validating thing. So it's a wonderful way to do things, whichever way you slice it. So if you are interested in this, I wholeheartedly encourage you to learn all you can and to follow your bliss. You know, maybe you don't have everything you need to start down this path right now, but maybe you will in the very near future. So, you know, life is about learning. So that's what we're here to do. So thank you for being here. Let's get into it. The title of today's episode is From Zero to Scalable: How to build businesses, or how to build a business step by step. And this is episode 99. 99. It's like a skit on a comedy show I saw when I was a kid about like 10 billion years ago, where a guy got a speeding ticket for going 99 miles an hour. That's what the ticket said. You know? So we're not quite at 100, but we're going to be there soon. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. If you want to build a business, we're going to talk about what you should do. And I have seen over the course of my life so much misinformation out there. You know, people telling people the wrong thing. You know, all this nice sounding stuff that when you follow it as advice, it just leads you to abject failure. You know what I mean? So we're going to be talking about that today. What's the right way of doing this? And if you don't know me, I'm a former CEO of a sort of small-time company, and I also had a period of my life where I was mentoring startup founders. It started as a voluntary thing, and it became one of the foundational things for what I do now. What I do now is I'm a management consultant for small and mid-sized enterprise. You know, so I'm dealing with small businesses and mid-sized. And by the way, small business where I am in Canada means anything under 500 employees. So when you say small business, it doesn't necessarily mean a one-person company. It means, you know, a little bit bigger than that usually. But yeah, this is a wonderful thing. And let's get into it. Okay, now in grand Bill, the company's expert tradition, I didn't have time to write down any notes. Okay, so I'm going to sort of give you some principles, just in a kind of stream of consciousness type thing. And I apologize for that. I didn't have a chance to really write anything down, but that's okay, because we can get into it. In the meantime, if you do have questions about anything as we go, just ask them and I will take them and we'll go from there. Okay, so the title of this, like I said, is From Zero to Scalable. And the order that you put things in is critically important when you start your own, essentially, business venture. You're trying to start a business unit. That's something that like makes money, right? It does a certain thing. It produces a product or service or combination thereof, and it makes money for you. You know, that's what you're trying to put into place. And I have heard so many people that I'm getting questions from them, and they're clearly going about things the completely wrong way. You know, people talking about tax implications of something before they've even got a customer. People talking about, you know, sources of grant money or loans before they even have like an idea for what they want to put out there. You know, people that are renting office space, building websites, getting business cards, dealing with intellectual property lawyers, dealing with accountants, all of that before they've gotten a single customer. It's back asswards, you know? That's the thing. So let's talk about how to do business right. What should you do? Here's the deal. What do people talk about a lot, especially online, when they talk about entrepreneurship? In terms of a product company, if you're producing a product, they talk about minimum viable product. They talk about prototypes, right? And so you get a lot of people that are just, they start off and the first thing they focus on is building a prototype. And unless you really know what you're doing, meaning you have a track record of entrepreneurial success behind you, I highly, highly dissuade you from doing that. Here's the deal. There are two types of entrepreneurs in my experience, people that I've worked with and people that I've seen. One is the introvert entrepreneur, the operations entrepreneur, the technical person. They fall into a trap a lot of times where they end up doing a research project, not a business, right? So they have an idea in their heads. I want to do this thing. I want to build this thing, right? And it's driven by, and I'm not being unkind, but it's driven by ego. You know, I want to do this, right? So they get an idea in their head, I'm going to do this. And the whole like making money thing, that's kind of an afterthought. That's like, you know, I don't really understand how that's going to work, but I'm just imagine that if I build this, I'll just make money. You know, it'll just happen automatically, right? Without me having to really understand it. It'll just happen, right? That very rarely happens. That's not how things work, unfortunately. I have seen a lot of people, and I've fallen into this trap too myself when I was very young, you know, where you go ahead and you do something thinking that the world will love it and they'll buy it and they can't get enough. And you put all this effort in, you put a monumental effort in, and you get crickets. You did this thing. Great. Satisfying for you. Unfortunately, no customers show up, right? And then you wonder what went wrong. And then at that point, you can't start again and you can't fix it because you're out of money, you're out of time, you're out of, you know, rocket sauce, whatever it is that drives you forward. You know, the things that give you longevity. You need the financial resources, you need the effort, you need the information and the insight. You're out. And so it dies, right? That's the blind spot for technical people. They're great at technical things. They don't understand business. And business is driven by customers. If you don't understand customers, you don't know where they are, you're not interacting with them, you don't know what they would go for and what they don't want to go for, you don't have any direct evidence of that, unfortunately, it's not going to go anywhere. So the secret, of course, is to put that first, right? The other type of entrepreneur, by the way, is the salesperson type entrepreneur. They're the extrovert. And I've worked with a lot of these people too. The thing is, they know lots of people. They're rather connected in certain circles. But the problem is they have nothing to sell. They have nothing of value to offer. That's their problem. It's like the opposite problem to the technical person, right? Now, I imagine that the majority of people I'm talking to over YouTube are probably the first kind, the technical person, right? So let's talk for the rest of the stream about them, unless I get any questions. By the way, there are 12 people here. Thank you for joining me. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Feel free to ask questions. That's what I'm here for, okay? Because I'm trying to evangelize about how to do this stuff right. Okay. So and by the way, I forgot. Shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members and my Patreons, my super thanks donors, and of course to you, my participants. Thank you for being here. Okay, so how do you do a business right? Well, here's the answer. And this is going to be counterintuitive to a lot of people that have heard a lot of cliched misinformation that's been put around online. The first thing you do is a market validation. Okay, let me explain. You need an idea that works. And what I mean by idea is that you need something to offer, so either a product, service, or combination thereof. You need to have a price. Okay, it's offered for this much money. This is what it is, this is what it does. And it needs to have the marketing together. Okay, marketing is the scientific study of customers or potential customers, and marketing basically answers three questions. Okay, who is your audience? How do you reach your audience? And what message do you send to your audience that convinces them to do business with you? Okay, those are the three questions that marketing solves, right? Those are the three questions that you're going to have to solve to get a proof of demand. Unless you have a proof of demand, you don't proceed. I've seen a lot of people that have spent money and time worrying about tax implications, worrying about registering their company name, worrying about renting office space, putting up a website, getting business cards, all this fluff, things that you spend money on, intellectual property rights and patents, things that don't matter at all unless people want your thing. If you can't sell even one unit of the thing that you're producing, whether it's a product or a service, what does any of that matter? All it is money that you spend, because these are expenses, these are liabilities. You spend money on it. You have to pay for accountants, you have to pay for patent lawyers, you have to pay for office space, you have to pay for websites, you have to pay. And then at the end, you still don't have anything that you can sell that will bring money in. You have the same problem. And the problem is that you need to figure out what you can offer that people will line up to pay for. Either you solve that now at the beginning, or you solve it after you've gone deeply in debt, paying for all these things that don't really, answer that question for you. Right? It's better to solve it at the outset, because that's going to be the biggest challenge you have. If you have money coming in, you have a steady demand for your product or service because it's good. You have the three marketing questions answered. You know who your audience is, you know how to reach them, and you know what to say to them to get them to line up to say, I want that, here's my money, take my money, right? Then you can solve these problems. You can deal with challenges because you got money coming in, right? Mark is here. Mark says, Mark Manzanares, I'm sure that's exactly how you pronounce it, says, I'm the first type, Bill. Thanks for all your tips and advice. You're welcome, Mark. Thank you for giving me some positive feedback so I know someone is listening. There are 12 people here. Thank you for being here. Yes, hopefully you get something out of this. And I apologize, my thoughts are a bit scattered because, as I said, I didn't have a chance to write anything down or really think much about this before I went live. So I know what to say, just that the order is going to be rather unstructured today. So the basic idea, the thing is that you have to do first is you have to solve the problem of proof of demand. You have to show a proof of demand. If you have, like I kind of just said, if you have people lined up around the corner with their wallets out, wanting to pay for the thing that you're offering, then the other challenges that you're going to be facing with this tend to be relatively easy. You have money coming in the door, you've got money to pay for things. Certain questions that we've covered, like patent lawyers, accountants, registering your company name, office space, websites, all that stuff, you can solve those problems to a degree by throwing money at it. If you need the accounting done, you need the taxes done, you hire an accountant, right? If you don't understand patents, you want to try and register this as a patent or possibly keep it as a trade secret, because you're paranoid about confidentiality of your idea or something, you can hire people to help you with that, right? Like you can basically buy that kind of help. So those things aren't real challenges when you have money coming in the door. They only feel like major challenges now because you don't have money coming in. You feel like I've got to solve these. You don't. You don't have to solve them. You only have one problem that you have to solve, and that is proof of demand. You need to get strangers that you don't know to want to pay for your thing, your product or service. By the way, we call a product or service or combination thereof, like the blanket name for all of that is called an offering. So I'm going to use that term from now on. Okay, so you have an offering, something that you're doing. If you have demand for it, then you're on your way. If you don't have demand for it, the very first thing you have to get is demand. Okay, so that means you have to have a combination of an idea plus answers to your 3 marketing questions. So let's just crystallize what I'm saying here, because a lot of people don't understand what this even means. What I'm saying is you don't have to create the thing first. So if you're like our good buddy Mark here, and you're a technical type person, probably an introvert, probably not from a business background, okay, that's fine. There's a lot of really bright people that are like that. That's fine. You know, your gut instinct might be to create the offering first. Let's create this product. Let's prototype it. Let's, get it, make sure it's real. And then we offer it for sale, right? That's everybody's gut instinct. No, I'm saying that's not valid. In fact, that works against you, because if it takes a lot of time, resources, and money to create your product first of all, you're blowing through all your resources, and this is taking a lot of time. Secondly, if you do all of that to create something only to realize that, like, this doesn't sell, I can't sell this. Nobody seems to want this. I try and tell them about it, but they're not going for it. Maybe they don't see its value. Maybe they feel it's too expensive. Maybe they don't have the money to pay for it. Whatever the problem is, I don't have proof of demand. Another mistake I see a lot of people doing at this stage is they go to friends and family, and they get their friends and family to buy it. Yeah, okay, great. But beyond your friends and family, nobody's buying it. That's not proof of demand. You know what I mean? A lot of times your friends and family, to spell it out, they're buying it because they know you and they like you and they want to encourage you, But that's not the same thing as proving that, this is a valid product or service that's going to work in the marketplace, right? I'm going to turn down my camera brightness a little bit. Right? So you need to go to people that are strangers. You need to get strangers to pull their wallets out and want to buy your offering. That's what proof of demand looks like. That means obviously you have to be dealing with strangers. You can't be just, developing a prototype. That's not the activity we're talking about, right? The good news is that in order to do this tough challenge to show proof of demand, the good news is that this requires very little money, very little effort, okay? It might take some time if you're just starting out, you're learning this, right? But all you're really risking is your time and effort being wasted. And I would put to you that if you're learning a lot during this process, it's never really wasted. It doesn't accomplish your goal, but it's not really wasted. But that's what we're talking about, right? People are impatient. They want to get to the part where they're hiring people and they're spending money on, lawyers and accountants, and they've got their own office and, or office space or storefront or whatever, because it's the illusion of being in business. It's the illusion of getting somewhere, right? You have to resist the temptation. Wouldn't it be great if you had money rolling in, right? Then you worried about that other stuff. And that's the right way to do it. Don't worry about company names. Don't worry about patents. And what you need to do specifically, and I've talked about this before, is you don't even need a prototype. You don't even need a product. You don't need a service. You don't need anything physical. You just need a proposition. So the simplest thing to visualize is if you went on something like Facebook, some kind of social networking platform. In reality, you would go to any place where people gather, people congregate, right? People that are your audience, your potential customers, right? Wherever you find those people, you would go there. Whether it's a physical place in the real world or it's a virtual place online, you would go there and you would basically announce, here's what I've got, right? I've got this thing. It's a product or it's a service or whatever. It's some kind of offering. This is what it is. This is what it does. It costs this much, right? Now, are there any takers? Who wants one? Right? Here's a way to pay me if you want one of these. And then you see what the response is. You see if this resonates with anyone. Now, if you get crickets, like absolutely no response, that's telling you something. Some part of this is not working. It might be a bad idea. It might be a problem with any of those three marketing questions. You're going to the wrong audience, or you're not reaching that audience effectively, or it's the right audience and you have access to them, but you're not saying the right thing. You're not communicating the right thing that's going to convince them to do business with you. So there's a problem with this process, right? Now, if you put this proposition out there, you say, hey, here's this thing. Now, does anyone want one? And you get like 30 people immediately respond saying, yes, I do. I'll take 2. How do I order? Right? Or like in reality, you would set up some way for them to pay you and they order. Like you're offering it for sale, they pre-order it. The same way the same thing you do on like places like Amazon. You pay up front and then they mail you your thing, right? Like you pay up front, money goes first, then they give you the product, right? So same idea. That's validation, where there's proof that people are willing to part with their money to get your thing, right? Now, there's a couple assumptions here. One of the assumptions is that, the thing you've proposed is something you could actually deliver on. That's kind of one of the assumptions here. So you don't propose some hypothetical, insane thing that, you can't deliver on. You don't say, oh, I'm offering, fully functional human androids that can do anything for $5, right? You propose something that you can actually deliver on. That's one of the assumptions, right? But assuming that, right, is there demand for it? Are you reaching your audience? Are you, is it the right audience? Are you saying the right thing? And by the way, the message can be words, it could be pictures, it could be video, it could be whatever the message is, whatever you're communicating. Is it the right thing to convince people to do business with you, right? That's going to result in people ordering. Okay? That's what you need to do. So as an entrepreneur, as a wannabe entrepreneur, this is the problem you need. You don't need to create anything. You just need to solve that problem of proof of demand. I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to see what the response is. And most ideas are going to result in crickets. Nobody's responding. Nobody's wanting to buy it. But if you iterate and you put some time and thought and effort into this, you can come up with something that, you put it out there and all of a sudden, hey, you're getting people ordering it. And if that's the case, that's when you are done step 1 and you're on to step 2. And congratulations, because step 1 is the hardest step of this entire process. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, comments, anything like that, get in the chat. I would like to make this an interactive kind of thing. That's the whole point. Oh, and by the way, public service announcement. After today, I'm taking 1 to 2 weeks off. So I won't be back next Monday with any live streams like I normally am. I might be 1 or 2 weeks before I'm back, but I will be back. Okay, so that's the first step. So you've basically done a market validation. So you've reached people. You've gone out into the world and you've gotten responses. The responses are very specific. They're people who you don't know who are trying to pay you to get the thing that you're offering. Okay, that's very specific you want. Now, if you've achieved that, then it merits going further. Okay, and from this point on, you're going further with money coming in. Right? You haven't taken any loans. You haven't taken any grants. You haven't burned through your life savings. Okay? You've got money coming in the door because people are seeing what you're offering and they are pre-ordering it. So now you have a little bit of an easier problem, which is all you have to do is deliver on the thing that you proposed. You said, I have this for sale. Now you have to go ahead and do it. So presumably, if you didn't act recklessly and promise the earth and the sky for like $1, you can then go and deliver on this, right? Okay, so that's a little bit simpler of a problem for most people, especially technical people, because this is where you really shine, right? Now you're doing the operations side. Melvin says, hope the 2 weeks off is vacation, not anything bad. It's nothing bad. It's the summer. I feel I need some kind of vacation. I enjoy doing this. That's why I do it. But I've been doing this like every week, like 6 live streams a week for a very long time. And I just like some time off. I'm also finding that I'm having less and less time to prepare for my live streams recently. And I think that might be a symptom of burnout. So it's a little bit of time to get centered and then come back. I think will do me good, and it will increase the quality of these things too. That's the idea. I'm also trying to do something more sophisticated with my YouTube channel. I don't know if anyone really cares, but I got to 500,000 subscribers just by me using the equipment that I sort of had lying around my house and my office, and doing the entire thing myself. So I don't hire editors. I don't hire anyone else. There's no one else on my team. It's just me doing everything. So maybe arrogantly and egotistically, I figure the next 500 subscribers, if I ever get that, will be with me doing what everyone does on YouTube is they have a team. So, maybe the time has come for me to do that. And certainly to upgrade my technology. The PC that I'm using to do this live stream, I built myself in 2010, So it's a little outdated. So it's time to make some changes. So that's the other thing that's sort of happening this year for me. Not to mention the fact that I think Microsoft is pushing everyone to use Windows 11, right? And all my PCs are a lot of the ones I use for this YouTube channel anyway. They're all like Windows 10, and they can't be upgraded because they're older than time itself. So I just got to make some changes. So that's some of the things I'll be doing in that 2 weeks off. But thank you for your concern, Melvin. Everything is going great, and it's great to see you here. And you're obviously a highly upstanding, awesome, fine individual for being here and for showing concern. So thank you. Okay, so we talked about the first step, which is market validation, which is the single biggest challenge you're going to have in your entire journey to being a successful entrepreneur, having your own business, working for yourself, and eliminating any kind of cap or ceiling on how financially successful you could be. Okay, market validation. And the great thing is that you do the opposite of what a lot of advice is out there in the world, which is bulk up, take out lots of loans, take out lots of grants, spend lots of money. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You solve these problems first. Because I got news for you. If you're going to be in business, you're on a journey. And the journey is not what you think. It's not for you to go from not making money to making money. That's not the journey. The journey is for you to go from not understanding your customers to having a better understanding of your customers than anyone else. That's the journey. Think about it. If you knew exactly what you could do, that when you told this person about it, they would say, yes, I will buy that. I will buy that for this amount of money, right? And all their compadres, all the people like them, you knew exactly how to reach them. You knew exactly what to say to them that would make them get out their wallets and like pay for the thing that you're offering, right? If you knew that, this wouldn't be really much of a challenge. You'd be an instant billionaire, bam. What makes it challenging is that you don't know where those people are. You don't know what to say to them to convince them to do business with you. You don't even know necessarily what's the best way to reach them to say that thing to them, right? You don't know what price to offer, and you might not know exactly what to make to offer, right? The challenge is in getting answers to those questions. That's really the journey you're on. If you knew all that stuff down to a T better than anyone else, this would be easy, right? So that's what is actually going on here. It's about learning about those customers, right? Learning how they think, what they're looking for, where they are, that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of technical people, and I'm not knocking technical people, I'm a technical person, but the problem is that you're so off base if you're just thinking about like essentially a research project. You're thinking about, here's the product I want to make. I imagine that if I make it, then everyone will just show up and buy it. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I just imagine it happening. So I got a good feeling about this, right? You know? Now, the problem is it takes time and money and effort to develop a thing, a product or a service, right? So you save yourself all of that and you worry about the real problem, which is convincing people that you have this thing, right? But then when you've done the market validation, then you move on to stage 2, which is the operations validation, right? Okay, we've promised this. We've said we're selling this. It's going to have these specifications or these traits. It's going to be sold for this price. Now we have to deliver on that. Okay, so hopefully you offered something realistic that you can deliver on. If you did, then this is not really that much of a challenge. You just do the thing that you were envisioning the whole time, and bam, right? You're now serving the customers that have pre-ordered it, right? Okay. And the argument that I get, the sort of knee-jerk counter-argument to when I'm telling people this process is that, well, I'm trying to do something very ambitious. Like I want to open a restaurant or whatever. How am I supposed to do that without spending any money? I'm going to need a loan. I'm going to need a grant. I'm going to need to burn through life savings, right? So your advice, Bill, doesn't work because I need money to kickstart my business. I need to put money in to get money out. That's not a stupid concern. But here's the thing. Here's the answer to that. You've picked the wrong challenge. Okay? Now listen, you want what you want, right? You know, if you want to open a restaurant, you want to open a restaurant. The restaurant, it's a physical thing. There's real estate involved. There's leasing involved. There's, property, plant, and equipment involved. It's expensive, right? Fair enough. Fair enough. But you can't do that as a kind of homespun thing. You can't. The problem is that in order to get that off the ground, you have maybe one shot. If you spend the money and you open a restaurant, let's just pretend that, you spent the money and you managed to do the whole thing. And then you discover that your educated guesses about what food to offer, what clientele to reach out to, what branding to put on the restaurant, how to promote the restaurant. If any of those decisions turned out to not be correct, those decisions you made when you were just guessing of what to do, and it turns out that you didn't guess correctly, the whole thing fails. You've spent your life savings, you've taken out loans, and it doesn't pay for itself. It loses money, bam, you fail, bankrupt, right? Very risky, very risky. Now, here's an alternative. Here's what I would say the solution is, okay? Think of the restaurant business, okay? Think of how you could break that down into manageable steps. What is a restaurant? Well, a restaurant is a combination of many things. Why do you go to a restaurant? Well, you go to a restaurant because, well, certainly some people, they want a place to hang out. So it's a location, right? And then it's an environment, like it's an eat-in environment where you get the decor and the lighting just right, and they enjoy it in there, right? It's also a place that offers original food, right? So you go to a restaurant to have their particular type of food, right? What differentiates McDonald's from KFC, from Taco Bell, from the Olive Garden, from any other restaurant. There's some really weird restaurants out there. Let me know in the chat if you have a particular weird restaurant that you go to that's very regional. Those restaurants where everybody dresses up like ninjas, or they dress up like they're from Mars, and they have like jousting tournaments while you eat, or some kind of drag race, or fill in the blank yourself while you eat, that kind of entertainment, right? It's hard to maintain a coherent train of thought when you just went there. Anyway, but that's another dimension of restaurants, right? It's a combination of that. It's a combination of their original product, like their food products. You go there for the food, right? Or the entertainment experience, right? Or sometimes, you don't go to the restaurant. It's like a delivery service. You can order their food, they deliver, right? Or it's like a drive-through. You go there, but you don't eat in, you get takeout, right? So there's all these variations on it. Now, here's what I'm saying. Can you start with a stripped-down version of the restaurant? Let's say the first thing you do is you work on the original food, okay? Let's break down this restaurant idea. Now, what do they sell that's original? Do they sell McDonald's burgers? No, they sell their own kind of thing, right? Can you do that as a standalone business? If the food is going to be really good, can you start with the food? Offer it as a delivery service. You don't have to have a storefront. You don't have to have a drive-through. You could do this. You could get it like licensed or whatever, so you're allowed to sell food, and then you could just offer it as a delivery service. How do you promote it? You partner with a grocery store. I don't know. You partner with another restaurant, or maybe instead of getting a delivery service, you do like something even stripped down more. You get the food to be sold in the supermarket. People can buy your frozen pizza product in the pizza section of your local supermarket, something like that, right? Where they buy groceries. It's a partnership with the supermarket chain. We are a supplier of food products. You carry them, you distribute them, right? Even if it's just regionally. And we're going to try and make it a success. We're going to promote it in the store. This is where you partner with them, and then you see if it sells. And if people like it and they keep coming back, that kind of validates the food product. So you're onto something, right? Now, if you can solve that problem, you can make money. And then you could tackle the next stage when you have money coming in the door. That's the idea, right? So what's the next stage? The next stage might be like a delivery service where you're going to take orders from a website or something and then have drivers that then deliver the food or whatever, like whatever the next step is, right? So you're breaking down the business, and you're not doing it as a monolithic thing. You're breaking it down into manageable sort of sub units, like baby steps, and then you're doing one and then the other and the other, and then it's like a staircase, right? And then after you've got all the pieces together, you have a food product that people like. You have a delivery service that works. You've worked all the bugs out of it. It pays for itself. It's making money, right? Then you do like a drive-through thing, and then maybe you go to the full restaurant, right? So you're working your way up. Now, each step is not a major risk because you're using several components that have all been validated. They've all been tested, right? So that's the answer if you're picking something too ambitious. Small business exists to solve small problems. Big business exists to solve big problems, right? So it would be inappropriate for you to say, okay, I'm a one-person company that I'm going to start up, but I'm going to do oil refining. I'm going to build $1 billion oil refining facility, and my customers are going to be Shell and Esso and BP, and you know what I mean? That's something you need a big company to do, a big organization. Small organization, that's outside your league, right? So you need to pick an appropriate business, to do, right? And if it's a little ambitious, at least break it down into little baby steps. You do this part first, then if you solve that, you do this, then if you solve that, you do this, right? And then it scales up. And each step is a lot less risky because you're not validating 5 things at once. You're validating one thing with 4 things that have all been previously validated. Like, for example, like when McDonald's or someone opens a new location, right? They've already validated the business model, the branding, the food products, the dining experience. The only thing they haven't validated here is the location, right? So if this fails, it's not because McDonald's as a concept fails, it's because that location didn't work, That's how these things work in the real world, right? So this should hopefully give you ideas like how to structure your idea if you're trying to do like a very ambitious thing, right? How can, like, it's still the goal to do that, right? And you're going to get there, but you have to break it down into pieces. What's the easiest thing first that you can validate first? And if that keeps money coming in the door, then it's relatively manageable and doable to then validate the next step and so on, right? Once again, this is intended to be an interactive Q&A, so if you guys have questions or comments, feel free to get in the chat. If you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with. I'm sure there are questions out there. If you do want to learn business with me, check out that course, Best Bang for the Buck Anywhere. You can learn anything you would in a full-blown MBA, Masters of Business Administration, but for $100. Pretty bold claim, right? Well, here's why I say that. It's because what you're getting is you're essentially getting a reading list, and then you can get the textbooks for cheap. You can order them off Amazon. These are the same textbooks they use in brick and mortar universities, the textbooks that they use in places like Harvard Business School in their MBA program. You're reading the same source material, right? So you're not learning it directly from me. You're learning, this is the source where anyone in a lot of these world-renowned MBA programs, this is what they're learning, right? Now, I'm supplying you with additional videos and things where I guide you through it, and I'm giving you my take on things, sharing some experiences of mine, and also sort of giving you a roadmap of, this is maybe the more important stuff, this is maybe the less important stuff, to kind of guide you. And then it's all up to you. It's all self-study. You can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. You could just skim the stuff if that's all you're really looking for, right? So anyway, great bang for the buck. People who want to learn business can take this, and you have access to the knowledge, for essentially very cheap. Also, if you are just wanting to enhance your traditional career, you're working as an employee, this will help you. It'll help you make better decisions in your role at work. It'll help you to understand the perspective of your employer, what they consider important and why. So it'll give you special insights there. If you want to climb the ladder, it'll also help. Understanding business theory, understanding things like accounting and finance and marketing, very important. And it will help you, obviously, with entrepreneurship. It's the building blocks of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is an area of business, right? So check that out. Link in the description if you are interested in that kind of thing. Yeah, so we've covered several things. We've talked about putting the cart before the horse. We've talked about the first step in everyone's journey to being an entrepreneur and having money coming in the door, right? Even for side hustles, same thing. You start with market validation. Then you move on to operational validation. Okay, that's the order of things. Okay, and then every other challenge beyond then is going to be easy because you have money coming in the door while you're dealing with that challenge. Makes it a lot easier to handle. So, I could keep going, but in the absence of questions, let me know if there's anything you guys are curious about or wanting to know. I could just go outward from this point. So, I'll give everyone a minute or so to see if we get any questions. I will be back this afternoon in about an hour, just over an hour. I'm doing a collaborative live stream with Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. She is a professional recruiter. And I don't know if you can hear that kind of slapping. I'm just doing this as I'm talking, like I'm making a point, but it's going into the mic. So we're doing an interactive Q&A this afternoon, which we do every 2 weeks, where we take your questions and you can ask any kind of question about getting a job or, careers or whatever. And you can get her take on it. You can get my take on it. And that's what we're doing this afternoon. So if that's interesting to you, stay tuned for that. Latasha Avery says, I'm trying to figure out how to make money as an entrepreneur selling services. Okay. Well, that's a great start. You certainly can. The great thing about services especially is that they usually take less effort and capital to start up, right? You don't have to make prototypes. You don't have to spend money on inventory. You might have to spend money on tooling and on marketing, but basically, they're a lot easier to start. The other big advantage of services as opposed to product is that they are a great leveling device. So normally, if you're producing products, right, it's very hard for a small company to go head to head with a big company, because the big company is going to have economies of scale, right? They buy all their raw materials in bulk. They do all their work in bulk. So you know how you get volume discounts from stores when you buy things in bulk, right? That's what they're taking advantage of, right? It's more efficient for them to produce products than it is for you. You're not buying things in bulk. You're not producing it in bulk. You're buying it individually and producing it individually in small quantities, right? So it's more labor intensive. So therefore, it might cost them to, $25 to produce a product, whereas it costs you $100 to produce the same product, right? So small players have a disadvantage when you're doing products because of economies of scale. However, in the service space, you can get one-person companies going toe-to-toe with large global multinationals and winning, right? Imagine if you had a situation where, like I'm in Canada and all the houses here have furnaces in them to heat them during the winter when it's cold, right? And occasionally, your furnace, like anything else, like any other appliance, it breaks down or it needs maintenance or whatever, right? So you need to get someone to come and fix your furnace. It's very important. It's very cold outside. You need to heat up your house, or else, all the water in your water pipes will freeze or something. So who can you get to fix a furnace? You could hire a global multinational, a huge company, right? Operating at a big scale. They have locations, in many countries, like in every city, in every town, they have a presence, right? Or you could get your next door neighbor, who's just a person, just a dude, right? And he knows furnaces. He knows how to fix them, So which one would you hire? You got the large multinational, or presumably they have expertise in it. They have resources to help you. But you also have your next door neighbor. Your next door neighbor, first of all, is conveniently located. They're like right next to your house. You call for the furnace repairman in the middle of winter. The global multinational, they're located downtown in your city. So it's going to take them 45 minutes or whatever to get here. Your next door neighbor is located 1 minute away. He can be there in a flash, right? Number two, you trust your next door neighbor. You know this person, right? Presumably you get along with your neighbor. So okay, I don't believe you're going to lie to me, or you're going to double cross me, or, commit some kind of fraud against me. I trust you when you say, okay, I need to do this kind of work. It's going to take this amount of time, and, this is the right thing to do. I kind of trust you more than some stranger, even though they work at like a global multinational. I still don't know them, right? So as you can see, there's certain advantages where a single person business can go head to head or toe to toe, with a large multinational who has economies of scale, but still win, right? In the service business, that's the great thing. The person hires you because you're the one that's in front of them. You're the one that's geographically in closer proximity to them. You're the one that they trust more because they know you, or you've built up a relationship with them. Whatever. You are located locally and people know you, so you have an advantage, right? So that's the great thing about services. It's a great leveling type thing where you can come in and compete in a sort of level playing field with big players and win. That's the great thing about services. So if you're trying to make money in the service business, you can definitely take advantage of this. Products, less so. Doesn't mean it can't be done. It means that it's harder, but you can still achieve that if you tailor exactly what you're doing a certain way. So I would definitely encourage you, Latasha, learn everything you can about business, learn everything you can about entrepreneurship, and just be cognizant that there are many different types of entrepreneurship. For example, the type of thing they do in Silicon Valley, okay, like that innovative tech entrepreneurship, is completely different to what they might do away from Silicon Valley, where they're not doing innovative entrepreneurship. For example, entrepreneurs come in many shapes and sizes. For example, there's a lot of people that start up their own construction business. You know how to be a plumber, so you start up your own plumbing business. That's entrepreneurship. Is it innovative entrepreneurship? No, it isn't. It's a completely different thing. Do you require startup seed capital? No, you don't. What you're doing is you're doing a more traditional small business, right? And in one sense, it might be less sophisticated, but in another sense, there are tremendous advantages. For example, when you put up your hand and say, I'm a plumber, first of all, most people know exactly what that is. They also know why they would need your services or your products, right? They also understand kind of the ballpark of what they would be expected to pay for something like that, right? That's all out there. Now, not only that, but there's also standard channels, because there's a whole industry based around this stuff, like the construction business, where people are hiring plumbers, right? And, the plumbers are working for various clients and things like that, whether there are builders building new houses or consumers getting the plumber to come and fix their pipes or whatever, right? That whole ecosystem, that industry, it's all established. You can open, well, in the old days, you could open the yellow pages and look under plumber, and you see all the plumbers. It's a known thing, right? Innovative startups where they're trying to do something that no one's ever done before, they put up their hand in a room and say, I do this, and they hear crickets. No one knows what that is. No one's ever heard of that. No one knows why they would need that. No one really understands why they would have to pay for that. I thought that's the kind of thing that you could get free. Why do I need to pay you for it? There's no ecosystem established, like a network of buyers and sellers of that thing, right? It's all like the Wild West. It's all like virgin territory, right? So the innovative startup is among the toughest business challenges you could take on, right? Because you almost have to educate the world saying this is a thing, this is why you need it, right? Because people don't just immediately know that. Like in the case of a plumber, where they says, I'm a plumber, and they go, oh, okay, I know what that is. I know I'd need it, and I know that I'd have to pay. And there's even industry standard rates that I would have to pay, like things like this, right? So, so entrepreneurs come in many shapes and sizes. The advice for how to start up one type of business is totally inappropriate for starting up a different type of business. That's the thing. It's not a one size fits all. So that's why it's a good thing to learn business and learn what, are your specific challenges and what you need to pay attention to, right? Okay. Okay, we're not getting a ton of questions, but that's fine. Hopefully this was helpful to people. There's been 12 people here for quite a while, so hopefully you've been hanging off my every word, like I'm sure you have. Yes, I will be back in for sure 3 weeks. Like I do this every Monday, but I'm taking a vacation for the first time in a year or something, where I'm not doing this every week. So I will be back in a couple of weeks. If you do have any questions or whatever, come back and ask me. I'll be happy to try and help you out. Latasha says, or I guess Avery, I guess that's your name, right? Avery says, thanks for sharing your thoughts and perspective. I think I need to focus on solving a problem. And like you said, make sure people know why they need my administrative skills. Okay. Yeah. A great thing as a thing to start out is try and find other people doing the same type of thing as you are wanting to do. Okay. It's actually a good thing if you can find somebody else doing almost exactly what you want to do, because it validates it. It shows that people can do this and presumably make money with it, right? So look at what they're doing, get ideas from that, and then I would encourage you to validate these things by trying them yourself. Okay? Sometimes people are saying, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and it's all kind of an image. They're not actually doing it. They're not actually making money It's kind of a bit of a facade that's constructed, so don't just like look at things as good in the beginning, but go out and try things. Okay. You don't have to spend any money. All you have to do is risk your time and effort being wasted because it might not work. But that's how you learn. You learn by trying things. Okay. So manage the risk. Don't do anything stupid where you bet like large amounts of money on things or whatever, or burn all your bridges like in your personal life or whatever. You know what I mean? Manage the risk, but then go out and try things. And that's how you learn. You do that for any amount of time and you will learn stuff. And no one else can take it away from you. Nobody can say, oh, that doesn't happen, because you've done it, right? That's the very empowering part of this. Tong says, have a great vacation, Bill. Hope you get lots of sunshine. Well, thank you. I'm in Winnipeg. Winnipeg is I think it's the city in North America where it's the big city in North America that has the most days of sunshine per year. So yeah, we're right in the middle of the continent, right up north, very dry, lots of sun. So I always get sunshine. But thank you, Tong, and I hope you're doing fine. Thanks to everyone. You guys are awesome. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. If you want to go deeper, check out my course, link in the description. Best bang for the buck around if you want to learn business. You don't have to learn everything the hard way. You can take shortcuts. You can take advantages of the people who have studied this stuff over many years. You can stand on their shoulders and have it pay off. Thanks a bunch. I will be back in about an hour with a live stream with talking about jobs, a career expert roundtable. Until then, take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon.